Have you ever said to yourself, I'm too old? And too old for you is the age of 40. Maybe it's the age of 50, might even be the age of 60. Have you ever said, I just can't do it because people my age just don't do things like that? Well, today's guest is going to blow your mind. Dr. Akil Tahir is a man who has defeated all the odds. At the age of 60, he had a massive heart attack and he was supposed to be gone by now. Well, he said, nope, not going to do it. And shortly thereafter, he decided that he was going to take a mountaineering trek. After open heart surgery, he took a mountaineering trek to Tibet. Then he ran his first full marathon, the Chicago Marathon, shortly thereafter. And then in September 2012, he climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest freestanding mountain in the world. Now, this man is defying all the odds and continues to do amazing things. And I thought I was doing great by doing my first marathon at 60. I come in last. I always hold that distinction. And I have a feeling he doesn't come in last, but he is doing some amazing things. And with that, I want to welcome you to the show, Doctor.
Are you ready to live the life you deserve? Do you want to feel vibrantly healthy and reach your optimal weight without dieting while being kind to animals and the planet? Then you're in the right place at the right time. Welcome to Plant-Based Eating for Health with your host, certified plant-based nutritionist, Kathleen Gage.
Thank you so much. Lovely being here.
Well, it's great to have you here. And I'm really curious, when you had your heart attack, tell us a little bit about how your life was before you had your heart attack.
Before that, Kathy, let me tell you, I'm born again at 61. So if I'm 61, I'm 73. Last March, I was 73. So I'm about 12 years old. That's number one. Number two is that I came to America to live the American dream. And most of my life, the better part of my life, I was a lover of good, unhealthy, rich American diet. Very rightly called the standard American diet, the S.A.D diet. Now, I was a seafood eater, this S-E-E. I ate everything at sight. You name it, I've eaten it. So with that, and I was totally a couch potato. I did no exercise at all till then. The only exercise I did was my eye muscles, seeing people run in the park. And with this kind of an attitude, I was also having a type A personality. I needed everything under control. So what happened was I worked endlessly to live the American dream. And I neglected, hardly scant attention to myself, to my health, to my family, to my personal life. Mm-hmm. So it was no surprise that heart disease came knocking at my door at the age of 56. I was devastated. And you must have thought by now, Kathy, that I would have changed my life. No. I did exactly the same, what I was doing, led an unhealthy life. There was no surprise again. At the age of 61, I had to have a bypass, open heart bypass surgery. Now, between those 5 years, 56 to 61, were the worst years of my life. Horrendous. I was severely depressed. My wife had to carry me to a psychiatrist. Bronchitis and sinus infections visited me every year. I had chronic constipation, which led to thrombotic piles, inguinal hernia, and diverticulitis, perforated my colon twice, admitted for long periods of time in the hospital with IV drugs going in, and mouth ulcers for years. So there was a standing joke in my clinic, Kathy, I laugh about it now. When a patient came in and said, Doc, I got this. I would say, don't worry, buddy, even I have the same.
Ooh.
So, I was in that shape, but something happened, an inflection point, you call it a reflection point, but I was tired of leading the life I was leading. So I said to myself, okay, Akil, give it up, retire, get on your rocking chair like some of your patients do, live vicariously through your children, your grandchild, and then wait for the inevitable death, or turn this setback into an opportunity. And I chose the latter. I said, I've got to do something of my life, not just ordinary. I'm going to do something extraordinary. So as I was wheeled in the surgery room, I told the nurses that if everything went well, in 8 months' time, I would do half a marathon. And they laughed at me, and I don't blame them. Here is a guy who has not even done 1 kilometer and is saying he's going to do half a marathon. When I got out of surgery and the pain, the excruciating pain that is there when you open your chest, trust me, because I wear 3 hats. I wear a hat of a physician. Then I wear a hat of a heart disease patient. And third, I wear a hat of a septuagenarian athlete. So when I turned around and told them, and in 8 months' time, yes, I started gradually. I started doing 1 kilometer. I bought sneakers and shorts for the first time in my life. And then I did a 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, and I finished the half marathon in 3.5 grueling hours. But I felt I was like on top of Mount Everest.
I love that. I love that. Well, my first marathon, it took me 8.5 hours to finish it, quite seriously. They'd already shut the door and everything. And the second marathon I did, I made it within the time. So I can appreciate that time. And, as I know, for me, we finished, we did it. But now when you started training to do a half marathon, did you change your diet in any way? Was that when you decided to give up the standard American diet?
I'll tell you, I did not go cold turkey.
Mm-hmm.
I started the flexitarian diet.
Okay.
I cut back on meat, eggs, dairy, sugar. And see, originally, like I'm an Indian, so the Indian diet is as bad. Remember that, because it's a vegetarian diet. So people in America think, wow, they're vegetarians, it's a great diet.
Mm-hmm.
No. Remember, a junk food vegetarian is worse than eating the flesh of an animal. And so what happens in India, there are junk food vegetarians, not all, but junk food vegetarians. So a lot of oil, and we have a cultural connection with oil. So we cannot do without oil. If we don't use oil, we feel that we are not doing justice to our guests. So there has to be a floating oil on the curries and all that. But I became a flexitarian. Then I said, wait a minute, let me give up something, each thing at a time. Now, I was already lactose intolerant, but let me tell you, Kathy, 70% of the people in the world are lactose intolerant. But we believe that this is a natural way of life. We get bloated, we get distended, we burp. Mm-hmm. That's normal. That's not normal. So what happened was I gave up dairy, but cheese was a problem. You know why that is so? Because there's a protein casein in milk. That casein you cannot digest, only the calves digest. If we digest it, it turns into casomorphine. That becomes like morphine or opium-like qualities, so there's addiction. That is why most of my patients who give up dairy say they cannot give up cheese because they're addicted.
Right.
So I gave up milk, and then I started giving up eggs, which was the next thing I gave up. Then I gave up meat, but the thing I could not give up was fish. And I sort of tried to convince my way in a false way that, I need omega-3, I need this, I need to have fatty fish. Humbug. But I was just doing it because I liked the taste. So I used to cheat. But then came a time, the last 8 years, I am a total vegan. And go ahead.
Well, yeah, and I'm fascinated by that because you're the first person I've ever talked to who said that fish was the last thing you gave up. Most people, it is cheese, and you've explained it very, very well about how addictive cheese is. And people say, "Oh, I can't do that," and it's like, no, it's not that you can't; it's that you won't. But I want to take a step back on something you said that when there was that period between 56 and 61, the 5-year period that was really tough for you, and you dealt with a lot of depression. It's so interesting if you watch the TV commercials at different times of the day when the depression medication commercials come on. And it's usually after a fast food restaurant commercial. And I just recently started reading Dr. Will Tuttle's book, The World Peace Diet, which I love. I'm actually going to be having him on the show. And he talks about why we get depressed when we consume meat and dairy and any animal-based products. And it has to do with the energy in the factory farms, in the fish farms, in all, whatever kind of food we're consuming, it's being farmed nowadays in a very grueling and cruel way. There's anguish, there's depression, there's fear, there's anxiety, there's all these emotions, not only from the animals, but the people that work in these places. So energetically, we're bringing this on. So depression is something that a lot of people haven't really connected the dots between what they eat and how quickly that can clear up. Can you address that a little bit?
Absolutely. You see, because let me first explain that I was so depressed. And because of the depression, I used to eat like a hog and the same nonsense. And I used to get more and more depressed. Now, I wanted to be alone, left alone, be on my own. But it was the time. Because right now, when I am a vegan, the clarity of mind is there. And then the exercise itself reduces. There were studies done that exercise itself can reduce the same way as drugs, or even psychotherapy is as good as medications. I don't believe even medication is my last resort with my patient. One interesting thing I'll tell you, being alone and trying to be alone and being happy is quite different from being alone in depression. Because when I was depressed, I didn't want to see anybody. But when I reached Mount Kailash, when I did my parikrama, 19,000 feet, and when I finished that, I didn't want to be with people. I wanted to be alone. But that was such a beautiful aloneness. Mm-hmm. I felt great. I said, what are these worldly things for? Do I really need it? I was really peaceful at that time, as opposed to being alone when I was depressed, when there were tormenting thoughts running riots in my mind.
Right.
So depression and food is 100% when you are eating meat, eggs, dairy. All these are 100% related to depression. And
absolutely.
You go ahead with psychotherapy, go ahead with especially with the COVID situation, and go ahead with your exercise, and you will get in a proper diet.
Right. Absolutely. And I want to remind people that this is Kathleen Gage, and you are listening to the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. And I'm talking with Dr. Akil Tahir. And Doctor, in your practice, how has the way you are as a physician and how you work with your patients, how has that changed since going vegan?
I am a resurgent physician. So what I did before was I treated the consequence of the disease, chronic disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol. I have now started treating the cause of the disease. Cause of the disease means that, Catherine, if you have got high cholesterol, I want to prevent you from getting a heart disease. That's primary prevention. But I go a step further. I do the primordial prevention. Why should you be getting high cholesterol? You should not be getting high cholesterol. Chronic diseases like obesity, diabetes, high cholesterol, blood pressure, all heart disease are man-made. But make no mistake, I'm from Alabama. I live in Atlanta, but my patients are from Alabama. I was so happy just last week when I realized that the director of the YMCA in my small town, Gadsden, Alabama, is a vegan.
Wow.
I was shocked. And then there is a congressman over there, a black gentleman, a young person who is also vegan. And if I'm not mistaken, we were the first people in our prison system to start yoga.
That's incredible.
Overturned now because of whatever,
Right. Well, I really want to touch on the whole issue of how so many people have, they've really given up their power to this whole COVID situation of, now, I'm not minimizing COVID. I'm not minimizing the fact that people get it, they die from it. But I would really like to touch on the whole issue of comorbidity and how people can actually minimize their risk of complications through what they eat. Is that correct, or am I just, with my head in the clouds? What's your take on it?
Not at all. You are 100% correct, because what happens is you build your built-in immunity with the food that you eat. We all, if somebody has done a study, I don't know, somebody should do a study. How many COVID people do you find in people who are vegans? Very interesting it would be to find out. But again, there are so many unknowns in COVID that we don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
But all told, yes, diet is definitely an important factor. And with the COVID situation, if you can you're staying home. And in America, we are not like in London, where you have small houses and you don't have a backyard. Most of the people around here who have a home have a backyard.
Mm-hmm.
What did I do in the COVID? COVID, trust me, this is a statement which will not go well with your readers. Some of them I don't know, but I'm going to make it.
Please do.
COVID may have got people down, not me. Because I got time to write my book, The Open Heart. I got time to learn gardening. Right now, I've planted eggplants, 3 different kinds of tomatoes. I've done sweet peppers and whatnot in my garden. And I learned how to cook. And I learned how to read labels. And I tell people, read labels. If you can't pronounce something, don't eat it. So that's another thing. But yes, it is so important, diet. And when you see the phytonutrients, you see all these antioxidants in your food, that builds up your immunity.
Right.
No doubt heart disease is the number one killer. Even with the COVID, heart disease for men and women is the number one killer. It kills more people than all the cancers combined. But with the COVID situation, one thing I would remind your listeners that please, I've talked this several times, 20, 30 times, please get your vitamin D checked.
Okay.
Get a supplemental vitamin D, because I have seen even before the COVID period, the vitamin D levels were very low in my patients, 60% at low. And a recent study has been done, a small study, but a double-blinded study. So it's a good study. 25 patients of 50 patients of COVID, severe enough to be admitted in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
25 were given high doses of vitamin D, 50,000 units a day. And 50 of them were not, 25 were not given. The ones that were not given the vitamin D, 8 of them landed on the ventilator. And the ones who were given vitamin D, only 1 landed on the ventilator.
Wow.
So please, if you're not getting the sunshine vitamin out in the open, at least 20 minutes or 30 minutes, 25 minutes a day, and if you're a darker skinned person like I am, should be a little longer, 30, 35 minutes. But if you're not getting that vitamin D, take a vitamin D supplement. You are never going to be hypervitaminosis D. I've never seen anybody with a vitamin D toxicity.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because actually my doctor, when I went plant-based nearly 3 years ago, and she was fully supportive. And she said, make sure you get plenty of vitamin D. That's one thing every time that we meet. And my blood work has come out great, so my numbers are really good since going plant-based. And when I first started, I didn't want to call myself vegan. Now I'm really proud to call myself an ethical vegan because I learned really what the truth is about the factory farms, about the toxicity and all that goes with it. Now, you mentioned your book, The Open Heart. Tell us about the book and where can people find it?
See, this book is available open heart on Amazon. Right now, I've got 75 reviews, great reviews. I've got testimonials from T. Collins, and I've got from Neil Bernard and all those big guns. Now, I personally want you to understand that my book, Open Heart, is a transformation of a doctor who, at the age of 61, ran, after a bypass surgery, ran marathons and climbed mountains, spurred by body, mind, and spirit. So the body part was of physical exercise. The mind and the spirit was the yoga, the meditation, the pranayama, the breathing. And therefore, I want them to come on a journey with me. I want the readers to come on a journey with me, experience the agony of living in this living in this exhausted body of mine that I explained to you. And then with insurmountable health problems and how I challenge these. So that I challenge these by the body, mind, and spirit so that people will not make the same mistakes I made.
Right.
And take small steps in trying to lead a healthy, heart-healthy lifestyle so that they can prosper from ongoing. It is not only the older people, it can be younger people.
Well, it's so interesting because recently we had a family gathering and there were several people in their 30s that were visiting family members. And one of the things that was so evident, I was one of the oldest, the second to the oldest. I'm going to be 67 in a few weeks. And my health was better than any of them. Few were overweight. I would go out running every morning. Like this morning before we had this conversation, I went out on a run near the river. And like you said, it's like enjoying my time on my own, but it's not a depressive alone. And I know what that's like. I've been sober 37 years. And when I used to drink, I wanted to be alone in a room with the curtains drawn. And now it's like, I want to be out in the sunshine. I want to enjoy the beauty. I want to hear the birds sing. And that's what the vegan way of life has given me. It's given you, and it gives so many people. Now I'm curious, did you lose weight when you changed your diet?
There was no weight because we Indians are not obese in the Western terms. We Indians are fat, but we carry our fat in our bellies. So you find an Indian, if you go to India and find Indians, they don't look obese. My body mass index was 23, but I had a pouch. And that pouch is a fat which is collected around the liver, in the muscles, and this is around your heart. It's directly related to this thing. Therefore, we Indians are sometimes missed that we have a heart problem because we are not obese. So generally speaking, but with my American patients, the nicest thing about a vegan diet, a whole food plant-based diet, you can eat as much as you want. You don't have to count your calories and you will lose weight. You will not get any heartburns. You will not get any distension. You will not get, and the nicest thing is go open up your refrigerator, eat what you want. So why not, when you're getting this, instead of going on to diets that I have gone before of a calorie restricted diet, most of the diets are for people to look great on the outside.
Right.
But what happens to the inside? So that's what I'm saying, that if this is a diet that can make you look both good outside, glow outside, and your inners are great. And I talk about constipation again and again, and people say, why do you keep talking about constipation? Because as a doctor, I know. I've seen my heart patients go into the hospital and they're not worried about the chest pain. They're worried about constipation. So that's the thing that worries them. So to me, I talk about that, and a plant-based or whole food plant-based vegan diet. Wow, where is my diverticulitis? I don't have it. They're going to cut my this thing. The surgeon told me, if I don't get your colon out, you'll die. Now look at that. I'm a physician, and a surgeon is telling me. And a simple thing like a whole food plant-based diet can solve this. Why?
And that brings up the next question. And I want to remind people that this is Kathleen Gage with Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. I'm talking with Dr. Akil Tahir, and phenomenal man, 73 years old, and he's climbing mountains in Tibet, and he's trekking through Tibet. He's running marathons. And, I have a whole list of what he's doing next: 100-mile cycling, triathlon, scuba diving, whitewater rafting, hang gliding at 73. Okay, folks, if you ever say, I'm too old, you need to listen to what this guy has to say. This is phenomenal. But what about the people that just refuse to make the change? They would rather have the pill. What can you say that might help them to move in the right direction? Besides getting your book, I'm going to encourage people to get the book, The Open Heart, and we'll put the link down below to Amazon so people can easily just click over and buy it. But what can you say that might help them to move a little bit in the best direction?
I think you must learn to take the baby steps,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not going to get something out of it. You're not going to do it. So what I try to tell people is, okay, what I did was I used to love eating a burger. So now if I don't have a burger, earthy taste, get something earthy, jackfruit or mushroom. And do that as a burger, and you will not miss it. For example, I invited my friends on 2 couples, and my wife and I. So there were 6 of us, and invited them over New Year's in 2019 or something. Okay, I don't remember the exact year. But they came, and the next morning I said, I'm going to make you great scrambled eggs with a lot of condiments and spices and cilantro and all that. And I did not use eggs. I used tofu.
I love it.
Hot tofu. I did that whole thing and I gave it to them. I kid you not. I can give you the phone numbers. They said, wow, fantastic. How did you make it? Tell us. I said, it is not eggs. So what? And then he had the audacity to say, no, it is not good. He was eating everything. He was loving it, but hearing that it is not eggs, he says, I don't want to eat it. And he had finished 3/4 of his plate. Then, of course, he was kidding. So he went back onto it. He says, well, tell us, teach us, because this is what we want to learn.
Right.
This is what we want to learn. This is what we want to do, because we don't find, in my time when I was a vegan, there were no vegan societies. There were no, 8 years back, that was difficult. Now you got a 600% increase in veganism. So take small steps and always put something else from the vegan side if you give up something similar to that.
Well, and I have to say, one of the best things that came out of the pandemic and the shutdowns is people had more access to information that they otherwise wouldn't have had time for. And more people are being exposed to the vegan way of life, the vegan information, the plant-based eating. And there's a lot of controversy over whether people should eat cultured meat and all of that. And I think that we have to meet people where they're at, and we have to realize that for some people, it's not black and white. I was very black and white. I actually started because of inflammation, but within a very short period of time, I realized how much benefit this was. And then I went to the different levels of looking at it for the animals. And I had been doing animal rescue prior to that time. And it was about 6 months in that I actually had somewhat of a spiritual awakening around the incongruency and the misalignment of eating animals, and yet I was rescuing them. So on the one hand, I'm going out and taking care of animals and doing everything I can to save them, but there was a different animal that I would put on my plate. And so for that, I've been going through some forgiveness, and I'm sure, in your book, it sounds like it's a very spiritual book, and I am looking forward to reading it. With what's going on in the whole issue of how people can get started. What would you say are 3 simple steps for people to get started with veganism?
Okay, first of all, try to, for veganism, you have to understand, try to get foods which you start liking, whatever it may be, whether it is mushrooms or this or that, broccoli or whatever. Try to make it interesting. Don't just boil it or this thing. There are so many recipes all over the world now. So if you can get recipes from How Not to Die or this one's book, try to get the recipes and take that small step. Number 2, initially you will have a problem as a vegan. People will stop inviting you. You have to ask restaurants beforehand. You have to ask. And another thing is what I like, what the Hollywood actors and actors do. They eat half the meal at home so that you're full, and then you nibble when you go to a party.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very interesting thing that it gave me a great decision to do it. And then finally, once you if you're not going to get the benefit out of it, you're not going to do it. So you have to get the benefit. And if you fail, it's like a drug, this thing. You may fail, but don't give up. Because a lot of people feel, oh my God, and they have this thing about genetics. But diet is more important than exercise. Trust me, because genetics is only 15 to 20%. People turn around and say, but bad genetics, I'm not going to, who cares? I'm going to die. If you have good genetics, I'm going to eat whatever I want because I'm going to live long.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather was 103, my paternal grandfather. My father was 83. Mm-hmm. How come I got it at 56? And remember, it is not genetics that run in your family. It is not bad genetics. It is a bad food that runs in your family. And somebody just 2 days back told me that, a bad genetics is like loading up a gun, but you only pull the trigger when you're having a bad lifestyle. So that makes so much sense.
Absolutely. Well, and I've read a lot about that, where in the family, it's like, we don't necessarily take on the disease of the family. We take on the food habits of the family. So I have a question on, since becoming vegan and now you practice in a whole different way, you have a more open mind to true healing. What has been one of your most fulfilling success stories in working with your patients, that it was just like you knew that you had been touched with this wisdom and it really made a difference in somebody's life?
You know what happened? I'm from Alabama. I treat patients in Alabama. Now, you know that Alabama is a state, the southern state, where they have their fried chicken and grits and what have you. And I was scared that if I bring this book out and my patients know about it, they may disown me. On the contrary, I got kudos from my patients. My patients started forwarding my Facebook post. My people said that everything, we may not agree with you, like climbing a mountain. I said, no, I don't want you to climb up. But they agreed. They agreed, and they have written reviews.
Nice.
On Amazon, they bought my book. And these are hardcore non-vegetarians.
I love it.
They're changing, but they're taking small steps. And I can't be with them because I'm doing telemedicine right now. So I can talk to them, not all of them, because I don't want to be a burden on society or my children. So I'm going to go in June to actually work. My son is a physician here, so he is works in the Northside Hospital. And so I want to, but it was great for my patients, my friends, my wife. She turned and gave up milk and things. I'm trying, and because she loved sweets and milk and all that. My friends are calling me and saying, "Oh, I want to go and do a marathon. Can you help me? What did you do?" So one thing they said, you write a book, And if you want to pat your back, nobody's going to buy your book.
Right.
If somebody is in for somebody around there to help them, that is when they will buy your book. But what I found was they love going on my journeys. A lady who called me out of the blue and said that, you know what? I feel that I've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. I feel I've done half a marathon because I did it with you.
Nice.
So it's a nice story that goes in, and there are a lot of humorous episodes in my story, like the time when my peapod, and in Mount Kilimanjaro, I used to carry a peapod and a small little tent with two of us in it, and I had a enlarged prostate, and we had to drink 5 liters of fluid, and it was extremely cold, so I had to pee in my peapod. When our peapod got full, I said, now what? But first of all, I would not be able to pee in my peapod because I was never used to it. So I turned this way and I turned that way and wouldn't be there. Then I knelt down and I put the peapod around there. And the person who was 15 years younger than I am turns around and says, Doc, what are you doing? I said, I'm praying for a miracle. And my peapod got full. And then I had to step out of the tent in that cold. And oh my God. And trust me, when I came down, my wife could not recognize me. My nails were pussy and full of this thing, and my clothes were smelling of urine.
Uh-huh.
But hey.
But you did it.
I did it.
So, well, what I was thinking is the next level of what you might start doing is actually having actual treks to Mount Kilimanjaro or India or Tibet or wherever, and take people on actual physical journeys and the mind, body, spirit. And how do people get in touch with you? What's your web address? If you could just give your one web address.
AkilTahir.com.
Okay. And it's AkilTaher.com. We'll put that in the show notes. And this has been delightful. I really have to say, I'm so thrilled that you came on to the show and you've shared your knowledge and that you're doing what you're doing, because it gives me something to aspire to. It's like, I want to keep climbing those mountains, my own personal mountains of what I'm going to do. I did a sprint triathlon a few years ago. Wow. I always come in last. I mean, I do hold that distinction with pride, but at least I do it. But, in closing, what are your final thoughts for people?
I think, generally speaking, people are not aware of the goodness of a vegan diet. They're not aware. And once you're not aware, you don't know about it. You don't know. It is people like you and I, more so you, because you are out in the public arena, more so than I. But you and all of us have to make people aware of what is good. Stop worrying about whether he's not going to do it or going to do it. Tell them that this is an option you have. Because if you do give them an option and they try, then they realize. But if you're never aware of it, nobody knows about it. A little kid somewhere in the slums, wherever, has never been told what is a cruciferous nice vegetable, will never know. So our whole thing should be awareness, make them feel that this is something which is as good, if not better, than the not, in terms of deliciousness, in terms of taste.
Absolutely.
I'm so thrilled being here with you, you put me at ease, and I love that,
Thank you.
Very, very much.
This has been delightful. I love what you're doing. I love the mission that you're on. And I love that you have been touched with such an important mission in life beyond being a physician, because being a physician is obviously very important, but now you're at a whole different level and depth and spirit of being a physician. So thank you for that. And I want to remind people that this is Kathleen Gage with Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. I've been talking with Dr. Akil Tahir, and I encourage you, get his book, The Open Heart. We will put the link below. It's been delightful, and I encourage people, give it a try. Try it for 7 days. Give it an honest try and see what happens in your life, and know that your body will go through changes. You will detox. And yet, once you get past the pain, the pleasure that you're going to experience is unbelievable. This is Kathleen Gage, wishing you a great day.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for your commitment to an ethical life through plant-based food choices. The kind of choices that are kind to your body, the environment, and most of all, animals. Be sure to leave a review and rating of the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show.